Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Let's start with the story in which the father of our OP turned out to be a real OG. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Mess with minors and my job, lose your job and your boyfriend. All right, circa 2014, I worked for a large movie theater chain in a small Midwestern city. Job was pretty awesome outside of the crap pay and essentially no way to move up. I like to think I'm good at my job and I try my hardest no matter where I work. In this particular situation, I was one of the most tenured employees at the theater, save for two other folks who'd worked there part-time on the side and had full-time jobs elsewhere. So for the sake of this story, I need to tell you about Jane, not actual name. Jane started working for the theater 2 months before me. They worked elsewhere as a supervisor and were looking to move up at the theater. Right after I started, one of the managers left to work at a different theater and the supervisor moved up. We had two managers, one general manager, basically the highest level at the theater, and a supervisor, which is a manager in training. This is important. Jane somehow got the supervisor position, even though there was another person who essentially was promised the position due to their continued service at the theater for almost 8 years. There were rumors about Jane sleeping with the GM when she started, and this situation got them going again. I didn't care too much because why would I? I'm but a lowly peon in the corporate machine. Anyways, Jane moved up and the tenured crew member left the company because they got screwed over. Once Jane moved up, we had a whole meeting about her moving up and how the theater focuses on professionalism and ensuring no favoritism was happening. Specifically referencing how normal crew members shouldn't fraternize outside of work with management. Jane didn't really listen to that, though. She continued to hang out with the crew members who were mostly underage and would do various things like go drinking with minors, taking them to bars and buying them drinks, or simply buying alcohol at a store and letting them drink at her house. I honestly have no issues with the drinking at home deal. Just adding context, as well as smoke with them and post pictures on Instagram. Oh yeah, forgot to mention, Jane had a secret Instagram where they would post pictures of themselves with their friends from the theater. They chose Instagram because none of their family or their boyfriend used Instagram and no one would know, right? Even more damning was her relationship with a 19-year-old that worked at the theater. She had a boyfriend who'd been with her for years and honestly supported her for all intents and purposes. Not only did she have a 19-year-old side piece, but was also messing around with a 17-year-old. I even caught them messing around in the break room one time. She essentially threatened me with my job if I told anyone. Honestly, she could have just told me, please be quiet, and I would have just judged her silently. Fast forward about a year or so, and another one of the managers left for a new job. Jane obviously moved up, and someone else took the supervisor position. Now, I won't go into much detail, but despite my tenure and performance, I was looked over for the promotion. A newer crew member who was really good friends with Jane got the position over me. This was confirmed by the other manager who let me know that Jane was definitely in good with the GM who ultimately made the final decision. That being said, I was beginning to sour and making minimum wage for years at a job that couldn't give a crap about my efforts and continued performance. That said, I was preparing for an exit. Before I get into my exit, it's important to note that Jane had and most likely still has a problem with me. I've talked about some issues I had with her, but I never escalated or even confronted her about anything she did to me up to this point. I honestly left it be. But I didn't like her, and the fact I didn't like her or play along with her bullcrap infuriated her. So much to the point where she made my life hell at the theater. When she was a supervisor, she didn't have much power, but when she became manager, she began giving me crap shifts, convincing people that I was weird and to avoid me. I mean, I am weird, but not like avoid me weird. Threatening me physically, threatening my job. Her and her gang of misfit a-holes also slashed my tires. I have no solid proof, but my car was parked in the employee lot and, yeah, only employees can get in. Beyond that, she also made fun of my girlfriend, now my wife, for having an invisible illness, MS. She would make her life hell because she had a disability and had some minor limitations. Add together all of this, plus my girlfriend went off to college, plus getting looked over for the promotion. Suffice to say, I found a new job. I had a few close friends at the theater, including my now wife, who I met while working there. Silver lining, right? I'd let a few of them know about the new job, but told them to keep it on the DL since it was still 2 weeks away. I'd put in my 2 weeks with the GM and asked that he also keep it on the DL since Jane and her posse would F with me. I told him that I wanted to tell everyone myself, so keep it quiet. Now the important thing about my job is that it's essentially paying me double my wages from the theater. All of my friends were stoked for me. I was taking the job that would have me making more than the managers at the theater, but also a job that put me on a better track in life. That being said, with Jane and I butting heads on multiple occasions and her track record of messing with me, she decided to get one last attack on me. She started a rumor that I was going to call out on all of my shifts the 2 weeks before my new job started. With her last act of revenge in motion, the GM approached me and let me know that he wouldn't be scheduling me the last 2 weeks. I tried to explain to him that the rumors were bullcrap, that I needed to work because it would be my only source of income. I told him that Jane started the rumor, and I started to tell him all the other stuff as well. He, of course, didn't believe me and told me that Jane wouldn't do what I was saying she would do. So it was her word versus mine. I contacted my new job, who let me know that my start date was firm and that their budget wouldn't allow me to start until 2 weeks later as originally planned. Now, here I am essentially jobless for 2 weeks. Now, I was upset, but I was also lucky. I was still living with family and didn't have to pay rent, so I sucked it up and essentially told myself that I'd just take a forced 2-week vacation. But Jane didn't stop there. She escalated again by having one of her cronies call my new job and tell them that I got fired. I was luckily able to talk down my new boss by letting him know that this wasn't the case, that I put in my 2 weeks and everything else, but that was the last straw. I left my last day at the theater, and while it was sad and I was upset that I wouldn't be able to work out the last 2 weeks of my job that I had for years, I was focused and determined on revenge. Rule number 1 of living a secret life and having a secret Instagram is not add everybody and their mother to the page. I had a friend of a friend who also didn't care for Jane. Let's call them Joe. Joe and I had gone to high school together and briefly worked at the theater together. He and Jane were part of the same group at the theater until they had a small falling out. Nothing crazy, but he wasn't exactly happy with her. I talked to Joe and we discussed my issues with Jane over some lunch that I bought for him. Food is the key to all revenge plots. Once we ate and discussed my problems with Jane, I asked for his help. I needed access to her Instagram. You know, the secret one, showing her hanging out with underage employees, drinking alcohol and smoking weed with them. And also some mushy posts about her 19-year-old boyfriend, as well as some moderately racy photos of her 17-year-old fling. With very little discussion, he gave me full access. I took screenshots of essentially everything. We're talking 2 to 3 years worth of illicit and moderately illegal activity, more than enough to get her fired and to raise some questions in her relationship. I took the screenshots and printed them on the most high-quality paper/material that CVS has to offer. I also copied them to a few flash drives for good measure. I purchased 2 yellow padded envelopes, can never be too safe, and filled them with both the copies of all the posts as well as the flash drive with additional copies. As well, I included a note in each one for the appropriate parties. One of the envelopes was taped to the back door of the theater. There was somewhat of a blind spot, so pulled into the parking lot from the rear and snuck around the corner Mission Impossible style to tape the envelope to the back door. On it was the GM's name, as well as in the letter, I merely stated that one of their managers had a secret Instagram with a lot of damning evidence of not only favoritism, but also fraternizing with underage employees amongst other wrongdoings. In the letter, I also requested her immediate termination or the information would be provided to the district manager as well as our corporate office. I made sure to put it somewhere the GM would see it on his morning sweep when he opened the theater. The second folder and letter was delivered to her home by Joe. Joe agreed to this as I knew Jane's schedule and also had a good idea of when she'd be gone and knew where she lived from previous hangouts. With both folders delivered, it was only a matter of time. Before I knew it, I was receiving death threats from Jane's gang, all of them saying that they knew it was me and that Jane was going to come after me, that she never did anything to deserve this. It didn't matter to me, of course. I no longer worked there and would hopefully never have to deal with them again. From what I heard, she was taken into the main office of the theater and the GM let her have it. He ultimately had to fire her because there was very clear proof she was in direct violation of many of the rules and conditions of her employment. As well, her boyfriend with proof in hand kicked her out of his home. Last I heard, she moved farther north and hasn't held down a solid job since. Her family didn't want much to do with her once everything came out with her cheating on her boyfriend. Also, the part about fooling around with the 17-year-old tends to not sit well. In the end, I started my new job without fail and moved on from that place. Haven't seen much of anyone from there since. And our next story. Cops want to use my dad's driveway as a speed trap. Icy window for you. My dad has a long driveway off a heavy traveled highway. The police came to his door and asked if they could park a police vehicle with a camera in it to catch speeders. He said no, and they left. They parked it right next to his entrance, just slightly off his driveway anyway. It's 2 below zero outside, so he took a bucket of water, drove down the driveway in his tractor, and threw the bucket of water on the windshield where the camera points out of. Now the windshield's iced over, so the camera can't see. Not sure who's the a-hole here. Probably my dad, but still pretty funny and slightly petty. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.